evening and welcome to Tuesday night. Tuesday night, which is your favorite night of the week because this is the night when Ben brings out his favorite recipes and shares for all.
Well, you'd be disappointed then because tonight I'm Mr. Mom. My wife and youngest daughter are out of town, so it's just me and my son, and which means it's my night to cook.
Okay, let's hold on. For those of you in the chat room, I want you to put down your guess at what Ben would make. Ben, I want you to write down on if you have a piece of paper or on your phone, type in what you would make in case if on this type of a night, what you would make. And we're going to see who gets the closest and they will get themselves. I think we got a DJ. We got some swag and we'll send something out. So
all right,
if you're in the chat room, this is your early chat bonus for being here early. What would Ben and just it's Ben and the boy all alone tonight. What would Ben make for the two of them? So
what did I make?
Did you actually make something or?
Well, that's the question because it's past tense right now, right?
I know. So I'm just wondering if you actually did make something, then we'll write down what you did. If you didn't make something, what typically would Ben make on a situation like tonight? Chop suey. Okay.
Great song.
Yeah. So put your guesses in the comment section. We'll get going on that in just a second here. If you're, thank you, Jonathan has got out on Facebook. A couple of you are making some guesses, so I'll give you a few more minutes. So our topic tonight, we're going to be talking about decibel meters, and there's many different types and different styles, and Ben's going to be going into those and giving us kind of the why and the how and what have you, because there's a lot more to them than you would think. And it's confusing to me, all these different and weighting and all this different stuff. So I'm really kind of excited for tonight's show.
A, B, C, Z. Yeah, you name it. All right.
Exactly. So we've got a couple of guesses coming in. We got a guess for pancakes, the chop suey or soup.
Pancakes a good guess. That's pretty. That's usually a weekend morning thing when I'm home, though.
Yeah, we got macaroni and cheese. We got hot dogs, pizza.
I can tell they think I'm a very sophisticated
pizza
cook
topped
here,
with spaghetti. I did not know.
I'm a good cook. I really am a good cook.
So we'll just give you another minute. Kale chips. Wow, they're thinking you're. This is Bemidji that he lives. I don't know if they even have kale up there.
That's what food eats.
Exactly. So we'll give you guys one more minute on that. So we're going to be starting with the talking about meters and such, and then we're going to go and kind of look at what Ben was doing this past weekend, because we got a cool little video clip, and I'm going to see if I can share that one way, shape, or form here with everyone tonight. So that'll be part of the second half of our show. So let's Ben, actually, let's start for a little bit, and we'll come back to the food thing here in just a couple of minutes. Kind of give us a brief overview of what a decibel meter, what it is and what it can do for us.
Well, the long and the short of it is a decibel is a quantitative measurement we can use to put a number to what we hear in terms of loudness. So a decibel meter is just basically the thing that gives us the number. It's something that allows us to measure the perceived loudness of sound and put a number to it. And so we have some scale of reference for that. I guess that's about as simple and as complicated as I can make that answer all in one shot.
So is it one of those situations where they mentioned this when it comes to lighting, and they're talking lumen measurements and such, and many of the manufacturers said it varies. A 2,000 lumen projector may not be, projectors may not. In this company may not be the same as a 2,000 lumen projector over here. Is decibel the same thing where there's going to be some variation in it?
Yes and no. And getting into the lumens thing, there's reasons for that because there's different ways that we measure lumens and that sort of thing. But given the same scale, lumens should be lumens. Given all things that are equal, lumens should be lumens. The problem is they're not. And then I ironically, just before the show started, I had a friend of mine who was asking me about lumens and lux and luminous flux and the relationship to millivolts and milliamps. And anyway, we cleared all that up, I think. So all things being equal the same, yeah, decibels are decibels. The problem is that there are different weighting scales that can be applied to a measurement. So all things being equal and no weighting applied, decibels should be the same from one measurement point to the next. However, there's a couple places where I can see the slippery slope here. And one of those is when you talk about lumens, we're probably talking about projectors or lights or something. And so we're talking about manufacturer specifications. And the same can be said when we talk about loudspeaker measurements, in that here again, if decibels are decibels, why aren't decibels decibels, right? There are a lot of different ways we can take those measurements that can lead to the numbers we see being derived in very different ways. For example, placing a loudspeaker against a boundary, we call that half space. And now we have a boundary loaded measurement, which is not going to be the same as full space, which is like that loudspeaker floating in space. And then there are different scales and different response times and that sort of thing. So while decibels are decibels, spec sheets are not spec sheets.
Okay.
Gosh, we can almost just do it. I think we did do a show on that. Maybe
we did.
If we did,
we had talked a little bit about it, but that was a while ago.
Because if I take, and this is kind of a theoretical, but the mathematics should support it. If I take a full space measurement of a loudspeaker, and let's say it's 100 dB, and I put that loudspeaker on the floor in a corner, in eighth space, now I would have 9 dB more. So now that measurement would be 109. So basically, we've got full space, half space plus 3, quarter space plus 6, and eighth space plus 9. Theoretical. Now, it doesn't necessarily occur equally at all frequencies and that sort of thing. But bottom line, just where we place the loudspeaker when we take the measurement is going to, with regard to boundaries, is going to change the decibel measurement. That's probably something we should just disregard for the rest of this show.
Sure. No, but it's good. It's good to be thinking about or to acknowledge that those things do exist as part of the overall equation, which we're not going to get into for tonight or beyond that.
Like a friend of mine said, he's a loudspeaker engineer, and he said if lying on spec sheets was a crime, there'd be a lot of engineers in jail. So. And that's the unfortunate thing. We have to sift through some of that. We have to sift through some of it that's just plain fake. And then we have to sift through some which is accurate but misleading, and anyway, like I said, that's just a whole different show. So let's keep it simple. Let's assume that we're just measuring our own rig, and we're doing so for the purpose of either ensuring that we have enough sound for a client's wishes, or that we're complying with jurisdictional concerns and that sort of thing. And for the purpose of the show, I guess we'll just kind of focus on the equipment to do it, right?
Yep, that's what we'll jump into next. Ben, can you hold up your little note that told us what you would typically make or what you did make for supper tonight? This is what Ben makes when it's just basically a guy's night. The gals are out of town, and it's just the two of them. What would you typically make? And let's see who is the closest. Went out for tacos. Oh, no. Okay, I mean, we would have given tacos I don't think anybody mentioned tacos.
It's Taco Tuesday.
It is.
We have a great authentic Mexican restaurant in town, and really I gave my son the choice, and it came with a bribe. Here's a couple chores I want you to get done before I get home.
Yep.
And if you get them done, then your choice for dinner. And the first thing he asked for was General Tso's, and I thought, gosh, I'm not going to make that tonight. That's complicated. And then he said tacos, and I thought, tacos are easy to make. But then I thought about all the time and the prep, and I thought about this great authentic Mexican restaurant and their great salsa and chips. And I said, you know what? Why don't we just go out to eat? That sounds like a good plan. So
nice. Tacos it is. Excellent.
Yeah,
okay. So let's jump back into the gear now for measuring the sound pressure of our system.
If I was cooking, by the way, it probably would have been mac and cheese or hot dogs. You're probably, those who guess those things are not far off.
But tonight it's tacos.
Yep. When I have both the kids, I get a little more involved. I actually take them shopping, and we kind of do the meal planning and the meal prep together, and do some of those things. But again, with just my son and I, in a short window of time between when I get home and the show,
tacos it is.
Yes, tacos it is. So, I guess the simplest thing maybe to start with is just defining what that piece of equipment looks like, right? And that's becoming a more complicated answer these days, is decibel meters take a couple different form factors. Somewhere in my collection of stuff, I have an old realistic model, the old Radio Shack model, which is really an icon in our industry. I mean, it was just sort of the standard. Everybody had one. Had a meter on it, and then a scale selector and a big microphone. And something that's common between that and the other ones I'm going to show you is calibration, which is really important, and we'll get to that in a minute. So for just having a sake of reference, there's a decibel meter, and this is one we actually sell a lot of to DJs because it's very affordable. It's about $50. It's actually really pretty good. Has a little mount here, so you could mount it and leave it run. Let's just fire it up here, and we can see we've got a nice display on there, easy to read. It's got a couple different settings here, max hold. It's got an A and C weighting selector, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then we have a fast and a slow measurement, which we'll talk about in a minute or two. And then it's got a level, a range, because maybe you saw earlier it was flashing low.
Yes.
That's because I'm talking really below the range that this wants to measure in. So I'm just not loud enough to make it happy at this point, So for the range it was set in.
So before we go too far now, we're going to be looking at a few different units now. Make sure the accuracy thereof. Is there a difference in accuracy from this one to some of the others as you're going through? Just kind of address that, please.
Yeah, and that's the only self-contained handheld unit I brought. I have run into situations where I've seen other, for lack of a better word, cheap meters that are so off, they might as well just be thrown away. In fact, I was hired to go do some measurement and some consulting for a venue. A prospective venue, actually. They were looking to see if it could be built and comply and that sort of thing. And the guy had bought 2 meters online. And what struck me as interesting is there was about a 6 dB difference between the 2 meters. And maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that 10 dB is twice or half as loud, that's really a substantial difference. That's the equivalent of 4 times the amplifier power to be off by 6 dB. In other words, they're basically useless. And so I have a calibrator, and I tried to calibrate the meters, and they wouldn't even stay within calibration. And literally the guy threw them in the garbage can before the day was over. He just said, forget it,
Yeah.
I'm done with this. So there are bad meters out there. There's bad everything out there. And I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually pretty impressed with this for $50. That's pretty cheap. It actually does hold its calibration pretty well. And so I'm pretty impressed with this. It's the little, less expensive little brother in the Checkmate series. There's several others. You can go right up to ones that actually have memory on board and store measurements and all kinds of cool things. Then, of course, probably what I use the most, particularly for anything that requires a lot of accuracy, is I will use software and an interface and then a dedicated measurement mic like this. And here's another example. So both of these mics are designed for the sole purpose of taking audio measurements. They have a very, very flat response. And even though the response is very flat, it's not perfect. So I have the calibration data for each mic as it came from the factory. And in fact, these two, I have a matched pair. They were matched at the factory, which is really nice if you want to get really, really down and precise and granular. One key thing, though, is that every time I use that mic, I need to calibrate it because I'm going into an interface and then going into a computer, and I have to give that computer a reference point. So whereas something like this, you can just pop it on, probably once in a while, maybe once a year or whatever, calibrate it. But otherwise, you can just pop it on and it's going to be really close. In fact, this one I did just calibrate. And after about a year, it was about a half a dB off. So I didn't have to adjust it much to bring it right back into calibration. And that was nice. And then another one, which is probably a really popular topic for DJs, is phone-based ones. And I tell you what, we're probably going to lose some friends here, John.
Uh-oh.
But I'm going to speak some truth. So first, I'll just show a phone app. So there's a phone app right there. So see if I can get it where you're not getting all kinds of reflections.
Yeah, we can see. Yep.
You're getting great reflections of all the famous dead people behind the computer up there. You can see. Anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, let me show you some key things about this. And this is going to lead us to some of the reasons that people aren't going to be real happy. Here again on the phone, I don't know if you can you see that?
Yep,
right.
yep. We can see that 70, 60 somethings. Yep.
We have calibration data. And you'll notice, maybe you noticed, this one actually has a calibration file in it for my particular version of phone. And the factory has done these calibrations. And so you can, now they send it with automatically with the updates, and the software says, okay, this is a XYZ phone. In this case, iPhone 6S, and it uploads the calibration file, and it's actually very, very good. But I can go in there still and manually calibrate it if I feel that's necessary. Here's where we're going to get, we're going to draw the ire of people. There's an organization called NIOSH, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health.
Okay.
And they cover a lot of areas with regard to occupational safety. And they did some testing of phone apps. In the Apple iOS store, they looked at, and I'm just quoting from their own website here, but they looked at 130 different apps, and of those found that only 10 actually met the criteria to be tested for, even meeting the criteria to be used in an occupational sense. And of those, only 3 were actually within plus or minus 2 dB. The others were way off. In fact, I've got a graphic here from their website. Let me just share this real quick. Okay, that popped up for you?
That it did.
Well, we can see here, these are the measurements from these different apps. And again, only 3 were plus minus 2 dB. Some of these you can see are just ridiculously off. So there are a couple of phone apps that I'm going to just bring us back here.
Sure.
There's a couple of phone apps that I would recommend, but with caution. 2 cautions. 1, be cautious that the app is just not so inaccurate that it's useless. And 2, beware of free apps, because, there's an old saying, if the product is free, it's not the product, you are.
Yes. Yeah.
I grew up on a farm in South Dakota, and I'm sure our cows thought it was fantastic that they had free food every day and free,
what?
They didn't realize they were the product. The hay was not the product. They were. And so beware of free apps. Some of them carry, viruses or that sort of thing. I think the App Store is pretty good about weeding that stuff out, but nonetheless, just get a decent one.
Yep.
I use an app called Audio Tools, and I don't get any money if you buy an Audio Tools app. I don't, not a penny. But it has some cool features in it. It has an RTA and some other things. And interestingly enough, NIOSH actually has their own app, which is free. Now, this is the one time I'll say a free app is not a bad thing because it's from the government. Reserve future commentary about the government here. But
yeah, we're going to get political all of a sudden.
Yeah, but they've developed an app that is just a decibel meter, and the app has a disclaimer. It says, look, this isn't accurate enough to be used for occupational safety, but it's pretty good, But anyway, I like Audio Tools because they have those calibration files that are up to date for iPhone models. Now, here's the part where people are going to get mad. I don't own a single stock of either Alphabet or Apple, okay? I don't own any Apple stock or Google stock, but they couldn't even do the testing on Android. They found only a handful of apps that were even partially qualified, and found there was so much variation in the microphones and the hardware from all the different device makers that make devices that run the Android platform. And that's really the key issue. There's far too much variation in the hardware to make accurate software. So the bad news is NIOSH said, don't bother with an Android app. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't any out there that work. It just means there's no test data that says they do.
Sure.
So I can't tell you if there's any good Android ones or not. NIOSH said don't bother. Actually, here, let me read this verbatim, just so you can you don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger. Like I said, I don't own any Apple stock. Reading verbatim from NIOSH's website. Android-based apps lacked the features and functionalities found in iOS apps. This is likely due to the iOS advanced audio capabilities compared to other platforms. The open ecosystem of the Android platform and having so many different Android device manufacturers using different suppliers and components. Basically what I just said. So, caveat emptor, I don't know how accurate a dB meter on Android platform will be, but I know that there's one that's really pretty accurate, two that are really pretty accurate for the iOS platform. That being said, though, they're still not as accurate as a real meter. So if it really counts, grab one of these. The exception being there are external microphones that you can buy and external interfaces that you can buy and plug into your devices. And those are found to be within plus minus 1 dB of reference. At which point, though, you might as well just bought a $50 meter. So fielder's choice. I thought it was cool and got one of those external mics for my phone, and subsequently just found it was a real pain to carry it around all the time and just quit doing it. So my phone's my phone, and it has a meter on it that's pretty close, good enough for getting in the neighborhood. But when it really counts, I use something else. Needed a drink after that. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, and I think we've gone through. So let's take a look at some of these settings and such, because the one I put the link for the one that Ben was showing, and I don't remember what it was.
Audio tools.
The blue. Decibel.
The Galaxy, yeah.
Yeah, the Galaxy. Okay, yeah, that's actually the one that we have used here. So I've got a little knowledge of it, not much, but a little bit.
Sure.
But that's the link for that. If it was in the chat room on YouTube, and if you do a refresh, it's in the description below the video, so you guys can click there and jump out to the website and see more information on that. So
I'll make you a deal. They're pretty good out of the factory, but I'll make everybody a deal here since you posted the link, and thank you for doing that. If you order one of these from our website or by phone, either in the notes of the order or when you call, say, please calibrate it. And again, it should be pretty close coming out of the box, but I will have one of our technicians or myself personally calibrate that meter before it goes out the door.
Will you autograph it also?
I suppose.
Okay. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. You can get yourself an official Ben Stowe autographed decibel meter for 7 easy payments of $19.99.
Does that make the value go up or down?
Kind of goes up, I guess. I'm not really good with math, so I just like that number.
Okay.
That'll be fun.
So let's talk about some of these features on here. Starting at the top, the max button is a max hold. It will basically hold the highest value that it sees. So that can be handy, I guess, at times. A and C are weighting scales, and they're the two most important ones. And there are others, B and whatever, but we're not going to talk about those. We're going to talk about A and C. A is primarily used by authorities having jurisdiction for noise ordinances, occupational concern, that sort of thing. A has a slight upward bias at about 2K. Has sort of a little bump starting at about 5 and ending in 500 hertz and ending about 4K, with kind of the top of the bump being at about 2K. And then below 500 hertz, it really starts to devalue measurements. The long and the short of that is that bass and low frequencies are really largely ignored in an A weighting.
Okay.
They're certainly valued far less. No coincidence, by the way, the A measurement tends to very closely line up with the human hearing or human speech, rather, excuse me. So I guess, since speaking to each other is how we communicate primarily as a species, or have at least historically, pre-Facebook, I suppose, that was important. So, by the way, I think many of our viewers can appreciate this joke. I just saw this the other day, and I thought it was the greatest thing. because we have smart viewers. We have viewers that I really like. They're smart people, and they're here because they're trying to get smarter, and they're you know, but we all see commentary on forums and that sort of thing. And I've said it before that those who know the least know it the loudest. The other day we had somebody who was screaming. They were shouting so loudly about how little they knew. You know, what's the old saying? Often wrong, but seldom in doubt. Anyway, so I saw this meme shortly after that, and I was laughing so hard. Somebody came in my office to see what was up, and it was a picture of the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. And it said, when I was a kid, I watched Wizard of Oz, and I wondered how somebody could talk if they didn't have a brain. And then I got Facebook. So,
but I'm bumped.
Just anyway,
Yeah,
it doesn't apply to you if you're watching this show. Trust me, you're aces in my book.
Unless, of course, they're on Facebook, and then that might be something. No. There's no connection there.
No, they're just encountering the people we're talking about.
Yes, that's
all of
what
our
it
viewers
is.
that are on Facebook know that those people are out there.
Yes, we all have that friend.
So, A-weighted measurements are putting some emphasis on the meat of the human speech range from just below 500 to around 4,000, with kind of the crest of the bump being at about 2K. A C-weighted measurement is largely flat through most of the spectrum. A little bit of roll off at the bottom and a little bit of roll off at the top, but otherwise very largely flat. And so a C-weighted measurement is much more musical and much more relevant when we want to consider the overall sound pressure level we're producing, especially with regard to low frequency and that sort of thing. So the long and the short of it, if you go to your gig and you take two measurements, the A measurement is always going to be lower. It's not going to consider your subwoofers and the low frequency content.
Sure.
So there's that. It is important to note, if there is a requirement, what scale is the requirement at? And so that's important. And then fast or slow, just putting them back up there so people can see fast or slow.
Yep.
Well, as I paused right there after saying that, the amplitude of my voice dropped. I mean, actually, it went completely out. I wasn't talking anymore. So you have a very high crest factor, or you basically have a lot of variation from the highest point, the highest amplitude of my speech to the lowest. And even in music, there's a substantial crest factor. Even in a sine wave, there's a 3 dB crest factor. And so fast is going to snag the highest peak and then immediately drop unless you have the max hold set. Whereas slow, which is almost always what we want to use, is going to take a sample of time, maybe a second or two, and it's going to take an average of that sample of time and say, okay, over the last second, this is how much sound pressure you are producing. And again, this is much better. You might be able to achieve higher peaks. If you want to show off, put it on max hold and put it on fast, and you know, you might peg something a little higher, but that's not really accurate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a slow measurement is going to show you the realistic average sound pressure level you're producing. And that's going to be a much more meaningful measurement. And then the last thing we have on here, we just talked about, the level button, is just allowing me to choose between the various scales. You know, right now I've got it set to 100, from 100 to 130, which it isn't going to show anything because I'm not producing that much sound.
Sure.
So, you know, right now I'm somewhere in the mid 60s, maybe just high 60s as I talk. So
nice. One last thing, and then we're going to wrap up with this segment, this part of our show. You know, as a DJ, if you would want to use some sort of a device for measuring sound, especially when I'm doing teen dances, there's times where I want to have earplugs in because the pressure is just so loud and I don't want to be damaging my hearing. But I'd like to be able to monitor the sound pressure on the dance floor. Well, what would you recommend to do that beyond unplugging, listening, and plugging back in?
Well, I think you should become somewhat acclimated with the hearing protection in, so you'll have some kind of over time, your brain will become trained as to what that is. But really, no reason you couldn't have something like this. Again, it's got a mount on the back, and you could mount that on a stand, and so you could continue to watch. If you were really concerned, there are meters like this that, like I said, have internal memory, or I use Smart as the software I tend to use, and there's a few others out there, but Smart will actually allow me to take measurements periodically. Maybe I say, hey, Smart, give me a measurement every 15 seconds and just remember that. And it just generates a CSV file. Then I could import that into Excel and basically create a chart. I actually did that a few times at concerts or arenas and things to give a real sense of what's happening over time and look for, dangerous peaks or that sort of thing, but I would say for just the sake of monitoring it here, unless we're worried about being able to produce that data later to show to the school to say, look, see, it didn't ever get over whatever. Just a meter like that, honestly, would be fine, And, it's another argument for a meter. The phone apps are great, by the way. I think everybody should have one. And so don't misunderstand me earlier to saying you shouldn't have one. Just understand what they are.
Sure.
And understand, their level of accuracy. For a school dance, I think that would probably not be something I would want to do, is leave my phone out all the time, measuring dB. So I guess I would say something like this, a semi-accurate, and these are actually very accurate, handheld meter would be what I'd do.
You had mentioned you had attended a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and you felt that the sound pressure, what have you, the volume was about 105 decibel on the dance floor, I believe is what you were saying.
No, I was saying it was mid 90s.
Oh, mid 90s, excuse me. Okay.
And I was saying if it was 105, I would have left.
Okay, so that was it. So if a person's targeting a dance floor specifically for teens, I mean, in that particular case, if it's 105 at a wedding, it would have pushed people away. Obviously, kids like it a little bit louder, but I mean, what gets to the point? I mean, I see some speakers that are advertised out there that are getting 130, 140 decibel, and obviously those readings could be a little suspect, but it gets to the point of how loud. When does loud become too loud for the safety of the people on our dance floor?
Well, some of those measurements are realistic, but there's some things that we have to take into consideration. 140 is probably not, by the way, unless you're paying an awful lot of money for that speaker, it's probably not accurate. For example, the X12 128 subs, I think that has a peak of 147 dB, and that is accurate. Each sub handles 16,000 watts and costs more than most people's DJ systems. Mm-hmm. So, if you're not spending that kind of dough and it says 140, you're probably being lied to. But a lot of DJ speakers say, 130, 131. Bear in mind, every 10 is twice as loud. So to go from 131 to 147, we're talking about excruciatingly loud sound pressure level here. But at 130, 131, that's pretty realistic for a DJ speaker. However, that measurement is calculated from the 1 meter, 1 watt, and then extrapolated out using the peak power handling of that box. And it's a measurement that's taken at 1 meter. So as people move away from your loudspeaker, every time that distance doubles, you're going to lose 6. So when you go from 1 meter to 2 meters, your 131 now just became 125, and so on and so forth. And that is a peak level. I would say, if you're, when we do concerts, we're probably in the low hundreds, 105 to 110. And at 110 is one of those situations, where doing, rock concerts and that sort of thing. If people are at a concert that we're doing and we're producing 110, that's where they're not hearing anything for the next 2 hours. Mm-hmm. You see them shouting at each other on the way out the door in the arena, great show. What? Because we've rung their bell. That's incredibly loud. And that's something I think I'd want to be mindful of, is you don't necessarily want to expose teenagers to 4 hours of 110 decibels of sound. That's dangerous. The good news is most DJ rigs won't,
mm-hmm.
So I know probably somebody out there has got their feelings hurt right now. I've just popped their bubble, but
they're like, oh, I wanted that. And thank you for going there with because I wanted to work my way to getting your experience in the touring area and what you aim for with a concert, because that's something that obviously you have the sound capability at most of those concerts to go above that volume level without a breaking a sweat, really.
Well, and again, keep in mind, we're using a system that runs on 4-aught feeder cables, enough power to run a small trailer park. And we're talking about $1 million of sound equipment. So, it's just
A different world.
Yeah, it is a completely different world. And if that could be done reliably with a DJ level system, well, of course we'd be using that instead. That'd be much more profitable for us, right?
Yeah.
But here's the good news. So, and remember, we're talking from 100 to 110. 110 is twice as loud as 100. I know it doesn't sound right. I know you're thinking, well, how can that be? That's just the way it works. It's not a linear measurement. It's a logarithmic measurement. So when I'm saying we're running at sustained levels of 110, we're talking about being twice as loud as the peak level probably of most, DJ type events. And again, that's okay because most concerts are only 75 to 90 minutes long. A dance is, 4 hours long. And also it depends on whether we're talking A or C. 100A is crazy loud. 100C, not so much because we can factor in all that low frequency from the subwoofers.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're in the hundreds, low hundreds, C weighted, that's probably, teens are probably happy.
Sure.
The biggest challenge that you're going to have there is maintaining that level over a larger area, which is another thing that's a little more difficult for a point source loudspeaker to do. And I feel like I'm about to stray off topic here, but again, a lot of people see line arrays at concerts, and that's one way we control sound over a large area. So they say, well, I'll get 2 or 3 line array boxes, and now I have a line array. No, you don't.
Yep.
Go see our show on line array.
Yeah,
It doesn't work like
There's
that.
some great
It didn't
graphics on
accomplish
that.
what you think you did. It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
Good.
I think
Yeah.
I think we've covered our bases. I think we've got
More than covered, right?
Yeah, we it's there, little information on the tangents and such that needed to be kind of put forward there. So that was good information.
One last thing I want to point out.
Go ahead, please.
Right there.
I see a control or adjustment or what?
A little rotary pot inside, and that is how you do the calibration. You use.
Oh yeah. That was it. I went. Yeah, you were talking calibration. How did? Because you had a device, I think, with you that for calibrating.
I do. Let's see here.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, because I've not calibrated my device, so I have no idea how accurate or how far.
So this is the device here, and there are two measurements on there, 94 and 114. And in the digital world, you'll notice that that's actually fairly standard. Let me just go back to my phone here. Let's see if I can pull this up right quick. Maybe.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
It was the free app and it's gone. It didn't like iOS 12.
No, I mean, I'm trying to get to show up. It's on the NIOSH app. So if we go here to the NIOSH app, gosh, come on. There we go. Can you kind of see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
And if I go to calibration, you can see there where it gives me the choice of 94 or
114. Yeah.
Yep. Because those are standards. And you'll notice at the bottom of this calibrator, there's ANSI numbers down there too, showing the calibration. So basically, and this is going to be just a little bit off if you and I talk, because of course it's picking up that sound as well. But if I set this to 94 and I stick this mic in here, and I got to get it seated in all the way.
Okay. So you're pretty much right there.
Yep, we're pretty much right there. And again, as I move it a little bit, that top rubs inside the calibrator, and that's where you saw it bumping between 94 and 94.5.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this is right on, is the point.
Yeah.
And so in the digital realm, the software will do the calculation for me. I put the mic in the calibrator, I tell it what value, and it extrapolates the difference and done. On here, you have to turn that rotary pot and until it is correct. And different ways we can do this. The way you'd calibrate your phone is a bit more complicated. You would use one of these that's been calibrated, play sound, pink noise, without subwoofers, until it's at that level, and then calibrate the phone to that level.
Oh, gee.
Or just use the trim up down buttons on the phone to match what value you're getting on the device. So, it's a little more complicated, which is why I really like Audio Tools, because it has the built-in calibration files for each phone. And they do a really good job of keeping that updated. Again, you pay $20 for the app, but you get what you pay for. So I really should call them and tell them I need a cut, because
exactly.
I've sold them thousands of downloads, but but the NIOSH app is free, and it's a great app, and it has a lot of cool features in terms of weighting and that sort of thing. But at least now we have kind of the basis for where we're at. If you bought a $15 meter, I wouldn't bother spending $200 on a calibrator or whatever they cost, because you're going to find that it doesn't stay calibrated very well, probably. So that'd be silly to spend all that money on a calibrator and not any money on the meter. Get one of these $50 meters or something better, and you'll be happy a long time.
And of course, we've got those links in the description below, so you guys can jump down there, refresh afterwards. And then Ben said, put in the comments or the notes area that you saw it on the show. And Ben said he would autograph. And calibrate it too, but he will autograph.
Okay, I'm going to calibrate. I'm only going to autograph it if you ask for it. Okay.
Yeah, you've got to ask for it.
I'm not a vain person, I'm really not. So if you really want an autograph tester, I will. If you go to the trouble of asking for it, I'll go to the trouble of getting out of Sharp.
Yeah, it'll be a keepsake right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Usually people want my autograph. It's on a check.
It's on a check, yeah, and it's like, oh no, it's not big enough there, boss. You need to make a bigger one. No.
Hey, speaking of which, this is funny. Talk about a young man who's going to go places in the world. Maybe the loony bin is where he's going. I don't know, but Evan, who works in our showroom, is allegedly dressing up as me for Halloween tomorrow. So I can't wait to see this.
Boy.
I can't wait to go to work and see what I look like, apparently.
I think the mannerisms would be it's got to be video.
He's going to be like a method actor or something, right?
I'm guessing. It's going to be an interesting. The number of times, you should almost communicate with Kat, the number of times that Evan says, it depends.
Ha! Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that's probably more on our show than it is at the office, but that's
it's just funny because we have that little cartoon geek that is on our website that our marketing team came up with years ago, and apparently that is also me. It looks exactly like a guy that's in the marketing department. It really doesn't look like me. I keep saying, no, that's Brad. That's not me. Look at that. Look at that. That is Brad. They're like, no, that's you. I'm like, it's not. What?
It's not.
I don't know. I don't know much about that stuff. I know a lot about decibels and meters.
And that's what we were about tonight. So we're going to wrap that part of the show up. We got a few minutes left, and I wanted to show the folks out there the video. This past weekend, there was a robotics competition up in Bemidji, and you're going to get to see it for two reasons. This is a two-fer tonight. First off, there's a handsome young man that was interviewed, and you guys all get to see that. But more importantly,
member of the year, I believe he was. This handsome young man.
Yes, he was. He was because he not only
and he's related to you, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be.
See, now this is me playing you because you ask questions you already know the answer to. Like, now is he related to you?
Yes. He happens to be my second oldest, and he's going to be graduating this year and going off to. Well, this weekend we're actually headed to Michigan Tech University.
And thank goodness he got Lori's looks, by the way.
All righty. On that happy note, let's pop over to the video. I'm going to see if I can. I think that we will be able to. I'm going to switch it so we'll be able to hear. Ben, you won't be able to see it, but they're going to be able to see, and they should be able to hear. So we're going to just play a little bit of the clip so you guys can see what Ben was involved with at that show. And.
The excitement of cool gadgets, intricate coding, and lots of brain power filled the auditorium of Bemidji High School over the weekend.
During competitions, the adrenaline's just going 24/7. There's always things to do. This is the first time I've actually got to chill down a little bit since this competition started.
The Northern Minnesota Robotics Conference was hoping to have more than 1,500 people at the event. And by the size of the arena, it looks like they scored big.
We've tried to step it up a notch from last year. We brought in a lot more light, sound, and video. NLFX, a local company here, came in and they've absolutely knocked it out of the park. Tried to add more excitement. We are up a couple of teams from last year. I think we had 17 teams this year. We have 19.
The teams will spend anywhere from 6 weeks to a year preparing for this.
All right. Oh, there we go. Whew. He's going to get a nasty echo there. So we're back. So Ben,
I got a shirt out of the deal.
yeah, and they gave you a shout out as upping the game with the lights and the lighting and different things. So kind of tell us a little bit. We could see in the picture when he was talking there of all of the different lights that were up in the ceiling there. It looked like you were flying quite a bit of gear there.
Yeah, there was. And, you know, we were just excited to be a part of this. These are some, you know, really bright people. These high school students are, you know, engineering these robots, you know, with a fixed set of parameters and you know, time constraints. And I'd never actually seen one of these events. It was pretty intense. It was pretty crazy watching what these kids have put together, watching them go through that. And so for us to be able to just add a little excitement, a little more excitement to it, you know, but just add some lights. You know, we had our video walls there, which we had 2 video walls, one on each side. So they had a live feed of the arena, and then we you know, used a keyed background to put a scoreboard on there and just have everything kind of compiled in a video switcher. You know, it was fun. It was something different for us for sure, and we all really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, we got to go to one of these in Duluth a couple of years ago, and we'll be going again this year. Just coming from sporting background and such, it was kind of a gear change, and yet there's still a lot of that competition and excitement. But I think that the biggest difference that I felt is that it's like teams are helping each other.
Well, they are, not only for the sake of sportsmanship, but also out of necessity, because they could end up as alliance partners. And that's one of the things that's kind of unique about this is it's not one team versus another team. It's 3 teams versus 3 teams. And so these 3 will win or lose together. And so what you see, particularly as you get on to the advanced part of the competition, is teams that are higher ranked will go pick other teams with robots that have complementary skills or designs with an end strategy. So these kids are learning a lot more than just electronics. I mean, I was really kind of blown away by it. I was really kind of funny because they were absolutely blown away by what we did. They had no idea, you know, that they really had no concept of what we were bringing in. And I guess unless you walk a mile in our industry, how could you, right? You know, we said, well, we're going to put some lights and some video, and, you know, they just, okay. And I think we were the same way. We were blown away too. We're like, wow, this is intense, you know? And of course it was really fun to get our technicians and the people from the robotics conference. And there's people who travel with this arena that, you know, to the various events, and they're volunteers. They work for, you know, Microsoft and other places like that. And so we had kind of this real nerd, to use one of your words, conclave. You know, there was a lot of nerdery that went down. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely sounded like it was a good time, and for those wondering, Brandon's team did very well with it, because it's a combination of skill and knowledge, and there's some diplomacy that goes on in the background, as Ben was referring to, with these alliances, and the kids learn how to play. The first couple of years when they were involved with the robotics and just starting up, that diplomacy side and how to connect with schools with complementary robots and things was something they were learning on the fly. And it's been kind of neat to see how that has evolved.
I don't remember exactly how many moving lights we had, a few dozen or so, maybe, you know, whatever, something along those lines, 30. I don't remember now, honestly, but I was walking through the pits, and they have pits where each team has a 10 by 10 booth. And that's where they're basically fixing their robots. And by the way, something else that amused me is they have a lost and found box at the scorer's table. And this is basically for parts that come flying off in the arena.
Oh, goodness
so
gracious.
I was rummaging through the lost and found box, which is sort of funny to call it that, because it really should be called the collateral damage box. But I'm, you know, shrapnel. And I was just sort of rummaging through the box as the day went on to look at the various parts of robots, bolts, screws, things that had, you know, been broke off in this, you know, and they're not battle bots, but it's pretty.
Yeah.
They're going at each other. I mean, blocking is allowed, and one team their lift arm broke, so they were no longer able to contribute positively to the score. So then they basically just started ramming into the other team. Like, okay, well, if we can't score, we'll just keep these other guys from scoring. They're just running defense, and. So, the pits are necessary, obviously, to keep these robots in repair and make adjustments. And I was walking through the pits, and there is a lot of camaraderie and diplomacy, but apparently I was looking too hard. Apparently I was, and of course I'm a nerd, right? Anybody surprised? No? Okay. So I was probably looking a little too hard. And I had robotics when I was in school, but that was 25 years ago. Robots have changed quite a lot. This guy, was sort of sizing me up and decided he better figure out who was sizing up his robot. And he said, "Oh yeah, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm pretty good, thanks." And he's like, apparently I didn't take the hint. He goes, "Oh, where's your robot?" I said, "Oh, my robots? Oh, they're all hanging in the air."
See all those really shiny ones? Yeah, those are mine up there.
But I mean, really, when you think about it, and I did take a moving light to a middle school robotics class last year to show them exactly that these are, in essence, robots. They're devices with motors, stepper motors that respond to serial data, an instruction, in this case, a computer with DMX, tells the robot light what to do, and it follows that string of commands. So the kids were kind of fascinated by that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. A good time was had by all.
Now, if only my moving lights could knock other robots to pieces like these.
Knock other lights down. Whoa, no.
Oh, boy, we don't want that.
Yeah,
no, heavens no.
It's being expensive. So, well, we're going to wrap things up because we've got Brian coming here in just a few minutes tonight. Ben, thank you very much for the info tonight. And we'll be, let's see. Yeah, we're back for a few weeks here in a row again. So we will.
Point of order, next Tuesday, I'm in Chicago again. So.
Okay, so we have next week. We're off. I don't remember if I had it on the schedule or not. Well,
I think we'll figure out some show. Maybe I don't know if my hotel is near a fire station again like last time, but I'll find something exciting.
We'll probably do a Q&A because I've been collecting more questions and such. So, and those are always fun because there's always the really in-depth life questions. Yeah. All right. The link again is in the description below. Refresh after the video, and then we'll see you in about 7 minutes with Brian Red.